We have a brief opportunity this morning. There's meetings to be done. You know, we talked to a certain degree yesterday with Amanda McKinney and about the Yakima County Proclamation, about greater local control, about pushback on guidance from the governor, what really constitutes an emergency versus a crisis, a manageable situation and all that.
Yeah.
And newly appointed County Commissioner Ladon Linde said he's got a few minutes to spend with us.
Excellent.
This morning before he gets on to one of his many meetings. And so in his first official KIT radio appearance, Commissioner Linde, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Dave and Lance. Doing well, thank you. Good to visit with you.
Good. Wish we could send you one of these caramel rolls through the phone lines because you're missing out. But if you don't mind us chomping in the background, we'd like to get your early take on things. I mean, let's face it, you know, when you decided to jump in and seek an appointment, there's a lot going on and a lot of people's plates. It's not a sleepy little run the county, build a road kind of thing right now. What was going on in your mind, Ladon, as you decided to jump into all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not the easiest time to get involved. You're right, but it's an important time to get involved. You know, my thinking about getting involved in politics. Well, I've done it off and on for a number of years. Supported Republican candidates that I think you all know. Some of you might remember Barb Lisk. I worked on her campaign many years ago. And,
big fan of Barb Lisk.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Barb was great. Yeah, I was her campaign manager. She asked me to do that, and I think it was not really that I actually knew how to manage a campaign at that point, but she was trying to teach me and get me involved in politics, and I guess she got me there eventually. Anyway, Bruce Chandler and Dan Newhouse are two others that I worked quite extensively in their campaign and support. But this year, my involvement right now really has its roots in the COVID pandemic and the fallout. I live in Sunnyside, and one of the things that I noticed late last year, we were experiencing a housing boom in Sunnyside that I have not seen in my 35 years in the town.
Wow.
Pretty excited about it. And then the COVID pandemic came, and all of a sudden I'm seeing that all of these housing starts have just been put to a complete standstill.
Oh.
And it really bothered me at the time. And I give the government the benefit of the doubt in the fact that when COVID first hit us, we really didn't know what was coming our way. We'd heard horror stories out of China, out of Italy, and the like. And so I understand that we were concerned, and rightfully so. As someone who works in a hospital, or has worked in a hospital, we'll say, up until recently, I know that COVID is real. But be that as it may, I felt that, the idea that, public construction could continue on, but the idea that, having people building single-family homes or apartments where there's, very little interaction between, workers, they're all outdoors. I'm thinking, what's the risk here? There's something wrong here. The nature of this seems very arbitrary to me. And we can go on the list. We can talk about the fact that, pot shops were open while churches were closed and, all these kind of different inconsistencies.
The incongruities caught your eye, huh?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I started thinking over the summer, maybe it is time for me to get involved on a personal level. Didn't really know what shape that would take. And then I think on September 15th, I read in the Herald Republic that Norm Childress was very sick, and later that day he actually passed away. So we all got very late notice of his untimely passing. But it didn't take too long before I started having people calling me and saying, you know what, there's an open seat. You really ought to look at this. And after talking it over with my wife and some other friends, decided to put my hat into the ring. And of course, it's a different process, an appointment versus an election. But I was fortunate enough to be selected by the commissioners. So that's where I got.
Well, at least you didn't say it was after viewing the events at Charlottesville. You decided to. At least you didn't give us that. The fact that the inconsistencies and incongruities were out there should make anybody of common sense and of community purpose decide to take some kind of personal action. And we're delighted that you decided to give this a go. You've got a lot of different skills in your toolbox, as they say, that you can help bring to bear on this. All right, so let's jump up a note to this recent proclamation. Ms. McKinney's point of view is that we need more information and more hands to prompt more action by the citizenry and social media and all of that. Did you guys sit around and have a discussion on how to crank out this thing, or did it happen? She brought it to the group, or what was your involvement in this most recent proclamation?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, great question. Well, the fact is that all of us have been concerned about, the fallout, from the COVID and the proclamations. And of course, as someone who's worked in a hospital for the last 14 years, I've had some frontline experience. I work with doctors and nurses on a pretty close basis, although I'm not a clinical guy. And I can tell you, I know that COVID is real. I know people who have passed away. I know people in my family that have gotten it. And so, I'm not one of those people that think this is made up. However, the other thing I've noticed in the hospital in Sunnyside is that because of the fact that people are, the staff working there are taking precautions, and we know what they are. It's, you're sanitizing, you're washing your hands regularly, you do the social distancing, you do the masking up, and very few of the employees of the hospital have gotten sick. And I will tell you that almost without exception, those that have gotten the illness didn't get it at the hospital. One of the concerns that I've had, with the current discussion, and I know Memorial has mentioned, recently that, a fairly high number of employees that aren't coming to work, due to COVID. I would gather this, and I haven't talked to them personally, so I don't know their statistics, but I have heard, from those that work there indirectly that, don't take that as saying that they all had COVID. Some of them are isolating, and remember that it's 70 employees out of 3,000 employees, and so and that I would gather, I feel very confident in saying the fact that I'm sure most of them that got the disease, and it's unfortunate that anybody gets it, but they didn't get it at the hospital, because I'm sure they're taking the same precautions, and so, the one of the fallouts that you've seen from this is that you see volumes for other causes. ED volumes are down across the nation, including here locally, and in clinics, which means that people are, because of their fear of COVID, are afraid to go to the hospital to receive treatment for other things that need attention. We've seen people that have delayed treatments that have cancer, cardiac disease, diabetes, and I can tell you, looking at the mortality rate between cancer and COVID, I know which one I'd rather get if I had to choose to get one.
Right.
Yeah.
And so these are concerns. Other concerns include mental health issues, isolation, depression, drug abuse, domestic violence, suicides. These have increased in the wake of COVID and its impacts and the isolation that people are feeling and the inability to go about, their normal lives.
Ladon, within the proclamation, it also says that you guys want more local control. What do you mean by that?
Okay, well, yeah, that's a great question, Lance. One of the things that we mentioned is that the governor has put out about over 300 emergency proclamations in this time.
Right.
That is a lot of proclamations by one person, and in the process, even the legislature the state legislature hasn't really had their opportunity to have a part of the conversation, and they should be involved. In the same note, or the same vein, we do believe that local control, local government works best. And why is that? Well, because you're closest to the situation. You can, whether you're looking at, and you can apply the same rules to a business. A good manager in a business, large or small, will walk around and get input and see what's happening in various departments of your business or your industry.
Yes.
Because that gives you a better feel of what's going on the ground.
The old business by management by walking around, man. That has been
exactly.
a proven technique for forever. And so when you've got your governor locked up, hearing from a small cadre of people,
exactly.
you're not exactly getting to all the corners of the state and getting the kind of input necessary. And I think Ms. McKinney made an excellent point, Ladon, when she said that, an emergency is of a certain duration, and crises follow from that, and they can be managed. You get past the shock of the emergency. This never-ending power that the governor seems to want to hold on to makes a lot of people nervous, and we're seeing not just with him, but we're seeing it with governors up and down the West Coast, obviously, and around the country. And so this is sort of your notice that, look, I know you're doing it, and to a certain extent you have the right, but We are in opposition, and we're going to be working, I'm assuming, with legislators to try to bring about a reining in of some of these open-ended power, right?
Well, that's exactly right, Dave. I will tell you that we actually had a meeting as commissioners with our local legislators recently. We talked about our legislative priorities, what we'd like to see out of the legislature in the coming session. And to be honest, I think we align our goals and desires align pretty closely. And number one on our list is we would like to see the legislature pull in the reins on some of these emergency powers. We shouldn't be able to just send out edict after edict after edict without some conversation with other people that are stakeholders, including legislative leaders, whether we're talking on the state level or the local level. So, yeah, that's actually priority number one.
Excellent.
We're also asking for business relief. If you're going to put these impacts in here, and we've had businesses, that for months were shut down. And then we're able to open on a limited basis, and then finally on a little more open but not completely 100% basis, we're able to function and start to dig out of the hole that have been created from those months of inactivity and inability to run their businesses, and for their employees to actually receive a paycheck and feed their families as well. And then right after that, it gets shut down again. That's a tremendous hardship for these people. So part of our thought when we talk about business relief is, well, if you're going to do this and put these rules in place, and especially so, in my opinion, arbitrarily at times, then we would like to see some support on the other end. And I don't think that's a complete solution, but it's a partial solution.
It's just like eminent domain to me. It is no different if the government entity assumes that for the greater good of all, things have to change, then those people affected by that change need to have direct compensation.
Yep.
And that's just that simple.
Yep.
Yeah, eminent domain, that's a good way to look at it. I hadn't thought of it in that term, but I think that's a good way to look at it. Yep. The idea that, for example, if a hospital can operate and keep its people safe, and if there's ever a high-risk environment under COVID, it's going to be a hospital. If a hospital can do this and our schools can do this, then why can't we apply those same principles to our businesses?
Excuse me. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I'll give you one more example. I think your point is right on. Now, this is a freebie from KIT to you, Ladon. No charge for this kind of information that I'm bringing to you now.
Okay.
But we are a conservative community, and we maybe need to change, because decisions made yesterday out of San Diego, 2 strip clubs appealed lower court rulings that said they had to close. And the judge said, look, they're serving some food. They can stay open. Oh, and by the way, other businesses serving food can stay open if they stay safe. So
do they have to be out? Do they have to have little tents outside?
Tents outside.
Really?
No.
Okay.
They were, but hey, don't try to go to church.
Yeah,
don't try to go to church.
That's crazy.
But if you want to go down to the Cheaters, the Cheetah Club,
Cheetah
or
Club.
the International Players Club,
There you go.
we're good to go. So
you
Sunnyside, that old business. What was the old business with the pheasant on it down there in Sunnyside? What was that? There's a restaurant or bar down there. There's
years ago, they've actually closed down now in the wake of this.
There's your location right there.
Story.
Hey, Ladon, enough silliness on our part. We appreciate the seriousness of the job that awaits you. You got meetings to come. Anything coming up that we need to know about that you're going to be talking about today that might affect us all? Or is it business as usual?
The interesting thing about county government is that one of the things that I've learned pretty clearly is that you turn on a dime pretty quickly. You can be talking about law enforcement and jails, and then you go to homelessness, and then you might be talking about the health district.
Right.
Then you might be talking about healthcare issues that are local and regional. We talk about budgets. It's a wide, broad scope of things that cross our desk on a daily basis. And and I guess if I could say anything to the public, in an overall statement, is that this COVID has been an emotional issue on all sides, and we get that. There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of fear sometimes, and we get that. But our goal is, to do our best to look at all aspects of people's lives and help them out in the best way we can. And we can't do everything we'd like to do. I was encouraged that the governor actually came out and put some loosening of restrictions on schools.
Yep, we spent some time this morning talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that we needed that. Yeah, and I actually heard that on the way up to the office, that, the idea of comparing infection rates in the community versus infection rates in a school setting are actually really apples and oranges. There are statistics over, in our state, other states, and actually around the world that show that kids aren't big transmitters, and that's a pretty low-risk area, actually, to be participating in.
Excellent. Ladon Linde, we got to go. We're out of time, sir. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good day.
We look forward to many more conversations as you continue your time on the commission. Thanks.